I am MSK, aka Master Swag King, coming at you guys today with another video. And if you guys are returning viewers or new viewers, then please consider subscribing to the channel if you have not already. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it and comment down below. Also, make sure you guys hit the notification bell. That way you guys can get notified on whenever I upload a brand new video. And in today's video, we are going to be doing a comic book review on Aliens versus Avengers. This is a comic book written by Jonathan Hickman with art done by Esad Ribic. This was a comic book series that I saw got announced on Twitter by the Twitter account Discussing Film while I was on break one day at work on my phone scrolling through Twitter. And this cover art page was the image that Discussing Film used to promote the book on their Twitter account. And I saw the tweet and I saw this as the first image and I was like, Aliens versus Avengers, Xenomorphs versus the Earth's Mightiest Heroes. Sign me up. And I instantly added issue 1 of Aliens versus Avengers to my pull list. So there are several things that I want to cover before I even get into showing you guys what is inside the book actually. So the first thing is this book actually got delayed. So this comic book, Alien versus Avengers, was actually supposed to come out in July, earlier this year in 2024. The comic book ended up getting delayed and it ended up coming out in August of 2024. And if you're like, hey, I really like this series, well, that's not going to be good for you and you're kind of shit out of luck because issue 2 of Aliens versus Avengers does not come out until later on this year in 2024 in November, around about 8 days before Thanksgiving. I think it comes out on like November 16th, actually. That's crazy. So I have no clue why this book has been getting delayed as much as it has. It probably has something due to the fact that Jonathan Hickman is actually very busy right now. If you guys don't actually know this, Jonathan Hickman is currently writing on Ultimate Spider-Man. He's currently doing Wolverine Revenge, and he's also doing this series as well. And this is something that I've talked about with comic book writers and people of like Jonathan Hickman's name, the name value of them is that the comic book industry doesn't have like that many big people compared to like back then with all those other really talented writers. And I'm not saying the writers now aren't talented. It's just that when they have a big name that was kind of a big name like Jonathan Hickman back in the day, they kind of just keep him and they latch him onto everything. Kind of like with Joshua Williamson. He's another one. And someone like Jonathan Hickman, Mark Waid. Like you see like writers that were like good at one point and still good to a certain degree, but the comic book industry knows they don't really have like other people they can really give a bunch of titles to that they know that they can sell very well. So people like Jonathan Hickman and Joshua Williamson get attached to like all these different titles actually. So I personally think the reason why the comic book was delayed was because Jonathan Hickman is just working on too many different things actually, right? And if you're a creative writer like he is, you gotta let the juices flow. You gotta have time to breathe and let your stories evolve for the ideas you're actually trying to put together. The other thing I want to bring up is the price point of this book. So I know a lot of people always ask me this. They're always like, MSK, what is the actual price point of modern comic books? So it really just does depend. So they can be anywhere between like $2.99 to like $9.99, $7.99, just depending on what you're actually pulling. This specific comic book, Aliens versus Avengers, actually retails for $7.99. So $8 to add this thing to your pull list, right? So if you're on a budget, this is probably something that you're not really going to be adding unless you really, really like the concept and you really like Jonathan Hickman and the art done by Esad Ribic, right? So if you're someone that's on a budget, I personally wouldn't recommend this to you only because I don't think you're going to get enough bang for your buck if you're on a budget. Now, keep in mind, if you're not on a budget, I would say add this to your pull list because let's be honest here, by the time you get to issue 2, which is going to be in November, it's not really going to matter about the price point anyway because you'd already got your money's worth, right? So I would say if you're on a budget, you're not going to really get your money's worth for kind of what you're expecting. But if you're not on a budget, I would say add it in, because if you go on leagueofcomicsgeeks.com, people are literally just talking about the price point. They're like $7.99 for a comic book. Yeah, like it's this way for a lot of other titles as well. Just it's just not as prevalent. Like this is the basically about the same price as Batman the Brave and the Bold, actually, from DC Comics, actually. And I know a lot of people were assuming on League of Comics Geeks that this book potentially got delayed also because of the recent Aliens Romulus movie. I really doubt that. Guys, let's be honest here. There's no synergy between comic books and movies, so that's not the reason. The reason why, in my personal opinion, like I said earlier, was because Jonathan Hickman is writing too much stuff, and he probably just got to this very last minute. Also, there's something I want to say about the cover art page. I do like it. The cover art is good. But if you're coming to this comic book expecting Iron Man and Captain America, they're not in it, okay? So the characters they use for this issue 1 of Aliens versus Avengers, if it's just talking about the Avengers, is Captain Marvel, Hulk, Black Panther, Spider-Man, Valeria Richards, and then you have another Black Panther named Azuri, right? And then you have another character who's not an Avenger. His name is Peter Wayland, but that's a story for another time later in the video, right? So you're not even getting Captain America and Iron Man potentially until like issue 2, actually. So yeah, I think the cover art page, while great, while good, is essentially kind of misleading because people are going to end up pulling this, expecting to read the book and get Captain America and Iron Man, and you just don't get Captain America and Iron Man in the book, actually, right? So let's start getting into the contents of the book. So there is some really confusing stuff here, and this has been my problem with Jonathan Hickman for not just Wolverine Revenge #1, which I did like that book, but it's the same trend in this one too. He didn't really have this in Ultimate Spider-Man #1. And I actually did read Ultimate Spider-Man #1, which I thought was actually good. He has this issue where like he'll set something up, but then there's no actual substance to it. It's just to move the plot along forward. And a lot of writers have this problem too, but you're going to see later on in the book what I'm talking about. So the book begins off with basically, you know, in the Alien franchise, there's like these people, there's like these, they call them synthetics. I just call them androids because that's essentially what they are. They are essentially, you know, like androids. So these androids basically captured this Kree and then has been experimenting on this Kree. They put a face hugger on him, and obviously you guys would know what that means. But later on, this doesn't really manifest into anything because they said the specimen failed, right? But it wouldn't make any sense based off the Kree's DNA that the alien xenomorph, like the face hugger, would be like rejected. It's just a weird concept. It's not badly written or anything. It's just like, wait, why would the Kree not be able to accept the alien? Is it because since the Kree are aliens and the xenomorphs are also aliens that they cancel each other out? I really couldn't tell you, honestly. So then later on, this same place that these androids are at get attacked by the Black Panthers crew. So if you guys were also wondering, Wolverine Revenge #1 and Aliens vs. Avengers are not a part of the main continuity for 616. So this is a alternate reality where aliens fight the Avengers. Just want to let you guys know that. So the Black Panthers appear, and the Black Panther for this book is T'Challa and Azuri. I'd imagine that's his son of some sort. They have this interesting moment of dialogue where they're trying to figure out, okay, what were these androids doing here? The aliens pop out. They obviously kill them. And then later on, they have more dialogue about talking about, okay, if these creatures get out further into the universe, then that's going to cause some really, really big problems. But then later on, it's revealed that already happened, though. You see my point there? This is why I could probably tell the book was delayed because of Jonathan Hickman's writing, because the concept isn't bad. The setup isn't entirely bad, but the setup is really odd and off in certain places where the places where the writing should be fleshed out, it's not, and the other places it is, right? So then T'Challa figures out that the person that was doing the experiments is an android, obviously, cuts his head off. He has this, talk with the other Black Panther right here. And then that's the other portion of the book. So this book retails, like I said earlier, for $7.99, okay? And it's 44 pages, which I think is worth the price of admission, in my own personal opinion. It's 44 pages for $8. Seems kind of worth it, right? So the brunt of the first portion of the book is just all that. Okay. Then you get the opening credits here. Yeah, I'm not even kidding. The opening part is just showing off the fact that these other characters were experimenting on Kree, and then the Black Panther crew ambushes them. Then you get into the real portion of the book, okay? So later on, it's revealed that there were 4 seed pods that landed on Earth, right? So these seed probes carried 4 queen eggs inside it, alongside with 12 infested hosts in suspended animation. And then 4 locations in proximity of high density population centers are targeted for initial infestation. So these pods came to Earth in 4 of them, and with infested hosts, and then the aliens eventually all bursted out of that, then started conquering the Earth 1 week at a time, a month at a time. Then we're going on years and then years, actually. So like with Wolverine Revenge #1, where Jonathan Hickman gave off this like post-apocalyptic world, this is also the same thing, like I mentioned in that review as well. So the alien ends up taking over. There's this like cameo bit for Apocalypse, who's obviously one of the main villains of the X-Men. He chose to obviously fight them as well. He ended up surprisingly losing. So the Xenomorphs have completely taken over Earth, except obviously how these stories go, except one place. And we start off our journey with Captain Marvel and Bruce Banner, presumably the leader of the Avengers in this continuity. Then later on, basically Bruce is having a dilemma that one of the characters that he's supposed to protect has not come back yet. And then Captain Marvel is trying to reassure him that we're going to go get her, actually, right? So Bruce Banner in this book is a pretty hit or miss character, in my opinion, specifically because, okay, given the universe that they're in, it would make sense that he would act like this, but I just didn't really like the characterization of Bruce. He's supposed to be a lot more smarter than this, but he wasn't really treated as such. Captain Marvel was treated with a lot more like, okay, I have more initiative, and I understand the situation a lot more better. I don't even hate Captain Marvel in this book, actually. I'm just saying that Bruce just seems kind of just incompetent, and that's not her fault either. She's written kind of fine. He's just kind of written like, oh, I've kind of given up on everything, and I don't know how to really deal with the situation anymore. So then they realize that the character Valeria Richards, who is obviously Reed Richards' daughter, because the Fantastic Four are basically all dead at this point, Spider-Man, Hulk, try to save Valeria, which they do. And the Spider-Man, a part of the Avengers team in this book, is Miles Morales. And as you guys know, they've been trying to push Miles Morales as the main Spider-Man for quite some time. And then they have this dialogue bit right here with, them saving Valeria. They get back to their home base. And then basically Valeria basically goes into a plan of trying to basically, finish off the Xenomorphs. Now, the thing here with that is this plan doesn't specifically work with the context of what's going to be revealed later on, right? So this is kind of where Jonathan Hickman loses me a little bit, because as you guys know, there was a promise that Bruce made to Reed that he would protect his daughter, right? But you know how these kind of promises go in series like these, because that character that ends up making a promise, the promised character ends up usually dying, right? So then she asked them, can you actually finish off the Xenomorph after her plan is made up? So then Bruce ends up talking to this one character named Peter Wayland. They go back and forth a little bit. And then Bruce ends up going back to the same place that she said, they were at this lab where she said she could, defeat the Xenomorphs. And then this is where the weirdest part of the dialogue comes into play. So she says that she went and did something and she ended up tripping and all of the Xenomorphs ended up attacking her, which is so weird because I don't even know how she would even get into that position, Like, how in the world did she get into that position? Because was she like physically there? Because for all I know, she just was examining this like Xenomorph egg that she caught, right? Because remember earlier, like I just mentioned earlier, she got one of the seed probes, one of the 4. Well, the seed probe was just inside of this building. So I have no clue how that ended up happening at all. It was one of the most confusing things in the book by far. It actually just made no sense whatsoever. It was just kind of used as a plot device to kind of just move the story forward with making zero sense whatsoever. I have no clue why he chose to write it that way. I mean, the art here perfectly conveys the situation, but the writing that leads up to it is just not good, in my opinion. So then, obviously, she's infected with the xenomorph, like she said, and then xenomorph pops out. Hulk ends up killing the xenomorph. He gets hit with acid. As you guys know, he has a really great healing factor, so it doesn't matter to him. So then later on, Spider-Man, Captain Marvel, and Hulk are in the same building, and then right after that, one of the face huggers actually attaches to Miles Morales. And you're thinking like, oh my God, the xenomorph is about to come out of Miles Morales. It's about to kill him. Well, here comes the twist. So the xenomorph has all of its power essentially sucked out and it's conscious. And then it comes off of Miles Morales because if you guys don't know about Aliens as a franchise, if a face hugger attaches to the person's face, let's say someone tries to grab that face hugger off. So the face hugger basically has to essentially impregnate that person, and that's the only way it'll come off. If you try to pull the face hugger off before that, your head will literally come off, right? So then the what ends up happening is the twist of the book, where apparently Miles Morales' Spider-Man suit had the Venom symbiote attached to it. We don't know this early on at all. It's just completely out of nowhere. And this is the problem with the book. Is stuff like the Valeria Richards situation happened, and then this happened, and it's just like, what in the world is going on here? So essentially, like it said right here, because he had the Venom symbiote inside of with his Spider-Man suit, the parasites essentially cancel each other out. Because to be fair, the Venom symbiote and the alien xenomorph are a parasite, honestly, because xenomorphs are just parasites and then they grow into the aliens themselves, And later on, the symbiote reattaches itself to Miles, and then he says they have to get off the planet, right? And then that's where the book ends, actually. And then they give you the preview for issue 2. And like I said before, Aliens versus Avengers is coming out basically about a week or two before Thanksgiving, actually. And we don't even see Captain America and Iron Man in this book. All we just saw was Miles Morales, Captain Marvel, the Hulk, and Black Panther. But this twist was so weird because Miles ends up not actually, well, we don't know this yet because this might be revealed in issue 2, but I doubt it. Miles didn't happen to end up getting impregnated by the face hugger, probably because he was also wearing a mask too, because it showed right there that he has it on, but they were concerned enough to basically like call out, hey, like we gotta probably end up like killing this guy because, we don't want a xenomorph running around with Spider-Man powers. That'd be insane, right? But then the twist coming out of nowhere was that Miles Morales had the Venom symbiote inside of him. Was just like, what? Like, that was his suit? It wasn't just a suit he made. It was just the fact that, the Venom symbiote suit was his suit. And apparently the Venom symbiote was stronger than the alien parasite, so it even absorbed his powers. Such a weird book, I will say that. Overall, I think the art from Asad Ribic is good. I wouldn't call it great. I wouldn't call it amazing. It's just good. It's just solid. Jonathan Hickman's writing in this book compared to Wolverine Revenge #1, quite the step down in my opinion. Not too bad because the setup is still here, but the ending twist doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. It might make more sense when we get issue 2, but until we get issue 2, this initial twist at the end was just kind of random, and I don't really know how I'm supposed to feel about this, but I do feel like the apocalyptic world that he wrote and created here is fine, and the art and the action in the book perfectly convey what this world is supposed to be, right? The xenomorphs have won. They have basically one city left, and now they're talking about even just getting off that city as well with Miles Morales' dialogue toward the very end. So, yeah, I really don't know how I'm supposed to feel about this book. A lot of people have had varying opinions on it. Like I said before, it's got good things going for it, but is it worth the price of admission? That's the real point of it, right? So if you're someone, like I said earlier in the video, that doesn't have, money issues, you won't care if this is on your pull list. But if you are someone on a budget, I would just say you could probably skip this and potentially just wait until it comes out in the trade. That's what I would say. Was this a horrible read? No, but I feel like the most important parts of the book, as far as trying to convey something, weren't there, right? The part that really got me when I was reading this earlier was the part where this is so unexplained and it just makes no sense, obviously. The part where we clearly know she's in this building because Bruce comes to her in this building and somehow, and the dialogue here is great and the art here is great. It's the way the story progresses with what she's saying, though. All this dialogue in theory makes sense and it's good, but the problem with it is that it makes no sense story-wise because how would this have happened to her? That's the thing is, Jonathan Hickman, in my opinion, has an issue with sometimes kind of sticking the landing on certain things, right? So that is my review of Aliens versus Avengers issue number 1, written by Jonathan Hickman with art done by Saad Ribic. I know you guys really enjoyed my Wolverine Revenge number 1 comic book review. And yeah, as you guys know, I'm consistently working on reading more comic books so I can obviously review more comic books for you guys. The next comic book I should be reading is Wolverine issue number 1 Deep Cut. That comic book is written by Chris Claremont. And right now for Marvel, essentially if you look at my pile of comics I'm going to end up reviewing for you guys, I have literally just Avengers. I have Avengers, Ultraman, Wolverine. I have a giant-sized Thor comic book to read for you guys and review. And then I have an indie book by C.S. Johnson. And then I have a DC Comics trade paperback. It's the comic book written by Tom King. It's the I Am Rebirth Batman Volume 1. So, yeah, those are the comic books on my pull list right now that I want to get through. I'm going to try and make sure I, read about... I wrote this down. I'm trying to, read about 3 comic books a week and get 3 comic book reviews out, right? And the good thing about a book like this, Aliens versus Avengers, is that I'm actually kind of glad the next issue isn't coming out until November because Jonathan Hickman really, really needs to iron out those important, emotional moments if you're going to be writing characters like that, and just important moments that have to make sense to progress the story because that part with Valeria Richards is just so stupid, I'll make this claim here, like I said earlier, the dialogue and the context surrounding it makes sense with the story, but just the overall how to advance it just didn't make sense, right? So what did you guys think about Aliens versus Avengers issue number 1? Did you guys enjoy it? Let me know in the comment section below. Thank you guys for checking out this video. If you guys are returning viewers or new viewers, then please consider subscribing to the channel if you have not already. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it and comment down below. Also, make sure you guys hit the notification bell. That way you guys can get notified on whenever I upload a brand new video. I'm MSK, aka Master Swag King, and I'm signing out, guys. See you guys later. Deuces. Peace.